What is going on, guys? Jake Newbie here. Welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be comparing the Sony A7R Mark III to the brand new A7 Mark III. Now, if you are new here, welcome. I make videos all about filmmaking and photography, so if that is something that you are interested in, please make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any uploads. 2 days ago, Sony announced its newest release, the A7 Mark III, and in my opinion, I think Sony is going to absolutely crush it with this camera. Much like its predecessor, the A7 III is priced for the mid-level to more advanced photographer. This camera is really more geared towards wedding photographers, event photographers, and even those who are into portrait photography. And because of that, Sony has this body priced for only $2,000. The A7R III, on the other hand, has a far heftier price tag, coming in at $3,200. And of course, the A7R III could be used for all of the other types of photography that I mentioned for the A7. However, there are definitely some key features that make up this large price difference. Starting off with a comparison is the difference between the two sensors. The A7R III features a full frame 42 megapixel CMOS sensor. The A7, on the other hand, features a full frame 24 megapixel backside illuminated CMOS sensor. Now, the A7R III obviously has the advantage for megapixels, which will allow shooters to crop photos without losing hardly any detail. However, the A7 III is now using a backside illuminated sensor, which will be better in low light conditions compared to the A7R sensor. When taking photos in burst mode, the two cameras are almost exactly the same, maxing out at right around 10 images per second. They also get just about the same amount of dynamic range, coming in at 15 stops. Size-wise, the two are practically identical. Really, if you had both of the cameras in front of you, the only way you could tell the difference is by looking at this little logo that's right on the front of the body. The A7 III does have longer battery life, however, which gives you the ability to shoot around 710 shots on a single charge. Moving into the video specs, the two cameras both shoot in 4K and 1080. The A7 is much like the A6500, which downsamples 6K footage into 4K, while the A7R III downsamples 5K footage into 4K. Both cameras shoot 4K video at 30 and 20 frames per second and 1080 at 120 frames per second. On the A7 III, just like the A7R III, we get S-Log2 and S-Log3 for better dynamic range in video mode. Also, I will be doing a completely separate video on why the A7 III is great for video, so stay tuned for that. Autofocus wise, the A7 III is actually more comparable to the A9 than the A7R III. The A7 III not only features eye tracking, but features 693 phase detection autofocus points that covers 93% of the frame, and 425 contrast autofocus points. The A7R III, on the other hand, has 399 phase and 425 contrast detection points. So at this point, you're probably wondering what's the big difference between these two cameras. It almost actually sounds like the A7 III is better than the A7R III. And well, for most people it is. However, the A7 III is lacking some features that the A7R III does have. Number one, as stated earlier in the video, the A7R has a 42 megapixel sensor while the A7 III only has 24 megapixels. And I do hesitate to say only 24 megapixels because 24 megapixels is more than enough for most people. On top of that, the A7 doesn't have the same pixel shift mode that the A7R III has, and the electronic viewfinder and back LCD screen are lower res as well. And lastly, the backside has some plastic pieces while the A7R does not. Pretty minor shortcomings if you ask me. Now, if I had to choose between these two cameras, I would definitely choose the A7 III. For $2,000, this camera is an absolute steal, and I'm sure it will be extremely popular moving forward. So if you are deciding between these two cameras, save some money, get the A7 III, and buy some nice glass with your savings. But that's pretty much gonna wrap it up today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you guys think of these two cameras down below. Give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it, hit that subscribe button, and we will see you in the next one.